Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the weekly Purple Penny coin news video. It's been a busy week in the shop as usual. As you may or may not know, we're not open in the shop on Mondays and Tuesdays. That's when we get our videos done and our online stuff done. It's also when we do all the back office stuff that keeps the business running that we never realised you had to do. So what's been happening in the coin world this week? The Mint, of course, the Royal Australia Mint has announced a new slew of releases for October. It's probably one of the biggest group of releases that we've seen since we've been Mint distributors. We'll talk through those in a minute. So let's just pop up the news here. So the October RAM releases, which I will go through in just 1 second, were announced this week, and everyone will no doubt be interested because there is a new $2 coin. It's the ambulance $2 coin, which goes along with the firefighter and police $2 coin. Obviously, it's being released in rolls. They are dealer exclusive rolls. You can't get them from the Mint directly, and the usual carded C Mint Mark coin. So let's just have a quick look at the releases there. Excuse me. Let's just have a quick look at the releases. So first up, we've got the, excuse the text size there is a lot of them this month. We've got the rolled ambulance coin, 25 coins in the roll. It'd be a head tail roll in the RAM paper. They are $100. The ambulance C Mint Mark coin, which is carded, which is $15. Then there's a 20-cent piece, which I believe has something to do with footprints found up at Lake Mungo in New South Wales. It's an uncoloured carded 20-cent piece, which is $10. There's a half-ounce fine silver version of that, which is $65. Then we've got the usual annual kangaroo release, which is starting off with a half-ounce silver version for $65. And then another $2 release. The Mint is teaming up again with Woolworths to release a 5 $2 coin set for the 30th anniversary of the Wiggles. Now that will be available obviously from the Mint, but will also be available from Mint distributors. I don't know if the design of the folder is different to that is available from the Woolworths. The details are a bit scant on that. So that's the first group of releases. The second group of releases has to do with the RSPCA, and I've sort of reduced the size of this a fair bit. So it's the 150th anniversary of the RSPCA, the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, and the Mint is releasing a coloured $1 coin box set. There's 8 coins in the box set. The box set, as usual, contains an exclusive coin, which is a wombat coin, and then the other 7 coins are available individually on cards, $15 each, and you can see the list of coins there. There's a dog, cat, dolphin, hen, guinea pig, lizard, and horse. So a fair whack of releases for October. 2 separate, distinct $2, well, let me just rephrase that, 6 distinct $2 designs, the 5 wheel coins, and then the ambulance coin, which is available in 2 forms, the roll and the C Mint Mark. So if you're into $2, now's the time to save your pennies and get excited. I will just, as always, counsel you to not get caught up in the hype with these $2 coins. The mintages are reasonably large. Think similar mintages to the Indigenous Military Service coins, so they will be reasonably obtainable. I thought it would just be worth reiterating the restrictions that are put on us as RAM dealers. So the first is in terms of quantities. We don't get what we ask for. There's a limited what's called wholesale application that the Mint allocates to their dealer network, and how they allocate that is not entirely clear, but we invariably, for high demand products, don't get what we ask for. So, you know, what does that mean to us? It means that sometimes we can't make inventory available to everyone that wants it from us. The RAM is very tightly controls the release date of their coins, so as such we're not allowed to show images or discuss pretty much anything about the coins prior to that release date. And this month, for the first time, they have not made high resolution images available to us so that we can pre-create our website listings, and that was an attempt by the Mint to prevent those images from leaking out. From what I understand, there are serial offenders that leak those images out and they become listed up on marketplaces like Facebook and eBay prior to release day in an attempt to, I guess, get inflated prices on products before they're actually released. So, you know, we have a number of obligations put on us as Mint distributors, and I guess if you're chasing product from us and we can't guarantee it, please understand that it's not because we're being difficult, it's because we're trying to operate within the restrictions that we are placed under by the Mint. I've been watching the gold-plated Animalia book prices with some amusement. They are following very much the typical price curve that low mintage products that have gathered demand hype on social media and eBay do. The prices when they were released, the issued number is very small. The demand spiked very quickly when people realised that the issue numbers were small and perhaps there was $1 to be made. They were selling for over $400 at one point, and then in the last 2 weeks they've gradually ramped down to under $300, and I suspect that they will keep declining because Animalia is a very niche interest subject, and you know, as people, I suspect, as sellers stop being able to make $1 out of them, then the demand will drop away. So the last item of news for today was just a little snapshot into coins and metals and the fact that they are interesting glimpses into history at the time that they were made. And this, you know, you just have to excuse me here for nerding out about this, but this is an item that is sort of a look back at a time in South Australian and Australian history when xenophobia was at its height, and xenophobia is, you know, fear of foreigners or fear of people from other places. This is an 1887 Queen Victoria Golden Jubilee medallion from the District Council of the South Rhine. Now, I will freely admit this is not something that I'd heard of before, and I thought, well, the District Council of South Rhine in South Australia is not a council that I know of, and I'm fairly knowledgeable of the local councils here in South Australia. So I did a bit of a Google search, and it turns out that the local council of South Rhine was founded in 1865 up in the Barossa Valley, and those of you who aren't from Adelaide would have heard of the Barossa Valley. And the Barossa Valley was settled in the 1840s by a significant number of German settlers, and as a consequence a lot of the place names and councils and localities and rivers and bridges had German names. At the height of World War I, when anti-German sentiment was at our peak here in Australia, and you know, we were nothing more than racists really with the way that we treated our local German people, there was an act passed called the Enemy Names Act, and as a consequence of that, almost 100 place names in Australia that had German-oriented names were renamed. And that's despite the fact that the people with German names had been here in Australia for 70 years, and many of them had enlisted and fought for the Australian Army in World War I, and many of them had died. There's 40 names, German names, on a memorial out in the Barossa Valley, and those men died in World War I fighting for Australia. And it turns out that the District Council of the South Rhine was one of these places that was renamed, and in 1918 it was renamed to the District Council of Springton, and in 1935 it became part of the Mount Pleasant District Council. So this is a really interesting item for me. It's got negligible value, but it is a really fascinating glimpse back at Australia as it used to be, and in a lot of ways not so different than we are now in terms of some political parties trying to garner popular support by being nothing more than xenophobic, which is being scared of people from other countries. So coin collecting and medal collecting, you should always be learning something. Right, so the topic of the week this week was spawned by the interest that people had in some counterfeits that I posted up in the last couple of weeks, and I thought, well, what can you do to learn how to detect counterfeits better? And the reason why you want to learn how to detect counterfeits is so that you don't get caught, obviously, if you're buying things online, and if you happen to be a dealer like myself, if you're buying collections. It's a great way of losing money, a lot of money really quickly if you do buy counterfeits. And in fact, this whole counterfeit kick that I'm on at the moment came from a gentleman in New South Wales that had spent $1,200 on coins on eBay about 10 years ago. And they were all counterfeits, and he sent those to us for closer examination. So what can you do to, I guess, build yourself a little toolbox to help you detect counterfeits better? So let's just take a look at that. Right. Now, you don't actually have to spend any money to build a counterfeit detection toolbox. The first place that you can go is to the internet. There are a lot of much more learned numismatic folks than I that have created some fantastic articles online on detecting counterfeits of key date pre-decimal coins. So one in particular is Peter Andrews, who runs a website called The Sandpit, and he has several articles on his website on detecting 1923 halfpenny forgeries and 1930 penny forgeries. On our own website, the Australian Coin Collecting blog, there's some articles on there on detecting forgeries of different coins. So those references are free. You can just go and read them and learn, I guess, the finer details of detecting counterfeits of different coin types. The second way is by building up a library of comparison images, and maybe that library is of images of counterfeit coins, or perhaps it's images of real coins. Why do you want a library of images of real coins? Because if you've looked at enough real centenary florins, when a fake one crosses your desk, it is obvious that it's fake. You don't need any expensive testing or to read articles. You just can just look at it and see that it's fake. One story I will give you is I was in a gold and silver buyer a couple of years ago, and he had some 1 ounce silver rounds, and I wanted to buy them all, so I did. And I was just flicking through the stack. There was about 25 of them, and there was a fake one in the middle. And it was so obvious to me that it was fake because the design of the portrait was all wrong. And it turned out that the person in the gold and silver buying place had not XRF tested that particular one, because he just tested the first couple and then assumed the rest had been the same. So, having a library of comparison images, looking at a lot of real items, and then using your eyes, which is the third item in the toolbox there, using your eyes is a great way of detecting counterfeits. Fourth item is catalogue. Why do you want a catalogue? Because it gives you a good reference as to the weights and compositions of coins, of the real coins. What are they made from and how much should they weigh? And then the next item is some scales, accurate to 0.01 of a gram. Where do you get those? The good old eBay has those for less than $20. We bought the scales that we use here in the shop about a decade ago for about $25 off of eBay, and they have performed perfectly for us ever since. They are entirely accurate, and you know, our rule of thumb is that if a coin is, say, half a gram outside of its nominal weight, then be suspicious. Be suspicious. The second to last item there is a magnet. Why do you want a magnet? Because often cheap silver forgeries of silver coins are magnetic, and obviously silver is not magnetic. So, you know, if you're dubious of a silver coin, then just having a little magnet that you can stick onto it and see if it's magnetic can be super, super useful. And then the last one there is XRF. So I mentioned that before. XRF is X-ray fluorescence. You can purchase for about the same price as a car an XRF gun, or alternatively you can foster a relationship with someone who has one and get coins tested by them in return for perhaps a 6-pack of beer, or, you know, just by being nice. We only resort to XRF when we have exhausted our first all of those other items in the toolbox there, and sometimes we are sure that a coin is counterfeit and we get it XRF tested anyway just to see what it comprises of. So if we have a look at this centenary florin here, for example, this is a forgery that we got a few weeks ago. It is, just by the surfaces and the lack of design detail, a fairly obvious forgery. Now, the surfaces of the design elements, so that the horse and the rider and the portrait and the lettering, if you look at the top, those surfaces, they've got a sort of this weird dimpled appearance, which is almost certainly a product of the way that the dies were made that made this counterfeit, and this is a die-struck counterfeit. And I suspect the technology that was used is what's called EDM, or electrode discharge machining, or spark machining, and that was really obvious to us that it was fake. The weight is right on. The weight is almost perfect, within, I think, 0.05 of a gram, certainly within tolerances. And just as, I guess, just as a matter of interest, we did have it XRF tested, and it is 85% silver. So how did they get the weight spot on? They got it spot on by actually minting it in silver and making a much more authentic forgery. Let's have a look at another counterfeit here, and this one, I guess, is an obvious forgery. We just assume that every 1930 penny we see is fake, and we prove to ourselves that it is real. So, you know, why is this an obvious fake? The last numeral of the date, the 0, is completely wrong. And I'm sure if I went and checked the alignment of rim beads and rim denticles with Peter Andrews' fantastic article on the sandpit, then I would find all that was wrong. But the biggest giveaway for me is the toning. All of these bronze coins have the same sort of artificial toning. This sort of weird mix of mint red and brown, and it's just, you just don't see coins that look like this. This one's even been taken to the point of being artificially worn. Perhaps it was put in a tumbler or something before it was toned, but just an obvious fake to me. Now, let's have a look at this item here. Now, this is a probably a bit more of a dangerous forgery, because I believe that this coin is, it's good enough to fool some people. It's a 1938 crown, and I should just say, more generally, I assume that most key date coins are fakes, and then prove to myself that they're real. So if I'm flicking through a collection and see a 1938 crown, I assume it's a fake. If I see a centenary florin, I assume it's a fake. If I see a 1930 penny, I assume it's a fake. Every 1922, 21 overdate threepence I've seen has been a fake. Anyway, 1938 crowns, very commonly forged. There's a couple of common types that you see. This one is slightly better than most in that it would pass sort of a glancing scrutiny. It's the strike weakness is there. The toning isn't horribly artificial. The weight is it's about within 1/4 of a gram, so not too bad. But the giveaway with this one is that the surfaces and the design elements are quite I won't say porous, but they have a bit of a like a sandblasted effect to them, which again is a product of the way that the die was made, the EDM or spark machining method. And I wanted to just round out here with a different type of forgery, and this is what I call a contemporary forgery. And you know, what's a contemporary forgery? A contemporary forgery was one that was created to actually try and get it to circulate as money. All those previous forgeries that I've shown you were made to try and be fake key date coins, to try and garner some value as key date coins, or perhaps, you know, they were just sold as space fillers. This is a 1928 counterfeit florin that was made in the 1920s or 30s to try and pass off as real money. And contemporary counterfeits like this are very collectible, and you wouldn't think so, but there are viewers on this channel that I know that collect them. I collect them. There are dealers that collect them. You know, what are these made from? They can be made from lead, they can be made from white metal, and white metal or pot metal are just sort of generic terms for some sort of metal that has a fairly low melting point, you know, that can be melted over a gas fire or something like that. They're usually very crudely cast from a sand casting, and are obvious fakes. But like the metal I talked about earlier, they are very interesting glimpses back to a time where faking a 2 florin coin was well worth your time, because 2 florins was a significant portion of a day's wage. At a later date, I'll do a video on the Manders and Twibble forged florins, which are extremely collectible. These contemporary forgeries are worth more, I think, than low-grade coins of the same type and the same year. So this sort of counterfeit florin here would probably sell for sort of $30 or $40, whereas a similarly worn 1928 florin would be only worth sort of $12 or $13. So they're very collectible, very interesting, and a good look back at social history. That's the topic for today. We've been going for 23 minutes. I haven't said hello to anyone. We'll just run through the hellos. Hello Gary and Glennis and Gwen and John and Val and Matt and Alex and Robbie. Thanks, Robbie. Yeah, we have been posting up some good error coins. We do love our errors. We don't see as many of them as we'd like. We'd love to post some more. Hello Werner and Clay and Greg and Michael, Ash, and I think that's about it. Alison, yeah, I think that's about it. So thanks everyone for watching. We will be back next week. We might get out our entire box of forgeries next week and run you through all of those. So thank you for watching. Happy collecting, and please take care. Bye for now.